Hello and welcome to the Pick Six podcast in association with Sportsbite. As you can hear, Stuart is not here at the moment. It's going to be Jason here with you hosting for now. And with me is Ed Painter.
Absolutely, here as always.
So, Connor's not here either at the moment. He's just come to offer some tech support. So, we can't guarantee how fantastically good this podcast is going to be today. But we're going to try and get one out for you anyway, just the two of us.
Let's give it a crack, shall we?
Oh, we might as well, yeah. So, how's your week been?
Well, busy as always. University taking over my life, that kind of thing. But what can you say? That you're paying that much money for it, you've got to use it, don't you?
So, of course, lots of big games coming in the NFL this weekend, and a load of results to look back at as well. Ed, what would you say your biggest game was last week?
Well, I mean, I was petrified about watching New England play.
And in retrospect, probably rightly so.
Exactly. I mean, normally I'm fairly confident about the Patriots playing if it's not against someone like, I don't know, Green Bay or Pittsburgh or Kansas. Scares the absolute life out of me these days. So I decided to watch the Bills instead, and I think the Bills are on their like 1,000,000th quarterback now or something like this.
It's getting stupid, isn't it?
I mean, breaking news, they've cut Nathan Peterman.
Oh, I missed that.
Nathan Peterman is no longer. They've got I think it's like Matt Barkley or something like that, and he scored like 42 odd points. The Bills absolutely routed the Jets, and the Jets had no answer for Matt Barkley.
It says a lot that I know, coming from a Pats fan, it must be a fun division to be in.
Oh, I mean, you can feel as unconfident in your roster as possible, but you know you get into the playoffs.
Oh yeah.
It's a sad indictment on the other three, and I know it's easy for a Pats fan to say about the other three, but I mean, they can complain as much as they want about the Patriots always winning, but the easiest thing to do is to sort your own border out. Surely
they're not helping themselves, and it's just meant season after season you're able to come in and just rout the division.
There was one season a couple of years ago, maybe 2015, I forget which one exactly. It was the Bills and the Jets were both around like a 7 or 8 win season or something like that, and you're thinking, oh, you know what, AFC is going to get really well represented here, and then just I was like, oh my god, got a nosebleed, realised how far they were going into the season, thought, oh no, I prefer a nice long summer holiday, thank you very much, and just gave up.
Yeah, none of this playoff stress, thank you very much.
No, absolutely.
So, in other games, we had the Steelers putting 52 up against the Panthers, which was a fantastic result for them on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming at all.
No, because the Panthers, I know when they got to the Super Bowl they had a strong defence.
Yes.
But since then they have gone downhill to not a massive extent, but to an extent where you wouldn't expect a team to be able to put 52 past them.
They seem to be one of those teams that, like, the Panthers, like, constantly fly under the radar.
Yeah. Like,
you always think they're good. You never quite think they're good enough these days to really go at it for another Super Bowl run. Had a good season so far this year, so never know. But Pittsburgh were definitely one of those teams where you're thinking, just so much. I mean, there's normally a little bit of turmoil and chaos in Pittsburgh's locker, but I mean, this season seemed to be more so than ever. But James Conner looks very, 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 very good. Le'Veon Bell must be steaming on his sofa at home.
I think we'll get onto this later on with the whole Le'Veon Bell. Sorry about that situation. So, that's bound to be something that's going to come up later on.
Oh yeah, for sure, has to be.
So, and if we move on to some other games, if we talk about, I want to get this in very early, my own Chicago Bears. And we have a certain person here who's not able to shoot down Mitch Trubisky today, so I'm just going to put it out there and say that he is really, really starting to get in the groove.
It's good for the Bears. I mean, so many years of oppression under Jay Cutler.
Oh, Jay Cutler is one of those players who, when he wants to be good, is like the army had.
Yeah,
was stupid, but it's just lapses of concentration. So too often.
He'd like put together the start of a decent looking drive, and you think, okay, here we go.
Then you get to the red zone, it's just interception, pick six.
You wouldn't be surprised if he gets to the red zone and he ends up back at the halfway line somehow. I don't know.
That's things like I've only been a Bears fan since 2013, I think. So I've only ever known Jay Cutler.
Oh dear.
And it's been an entertaining existence. It's fair to say.
Very PC choice of word there.
It's just so good to see a young quarterback come in who's got a mind who has the mindset that he can run with the ball if he needs to.
Yeah.
And it's just so fun to see that. But the Lions as well, putting up 22 points against a fairly strong defense. How did you see that coming?
I didn't think Matt Patricia would do as well as the head coach of the Detroit Lions. There's still some underlying issues there for Detroit. Obviously, having traded Golden Tate away, it's about what kind of identity they're looking for, whether they're really making a push for this season, or whether they've really got more of an eye on let's have a real good run next season. Let's see what we can build for. But credit where credit's due. Detroit looks decent. What can I say?
Things they're bottom in the NFC North, but that's not exactly saying a huge amount, is it? Because they've got some good wins this season.
Oh, that's it. I mean, speaking as someone who supports the team in the AFC East, I know all about weak divisions. I mean, it's some divisions. You look at the team that's at the bottom. For example, the Detroit Lions. If you stick the Detroit Lions in the AFC East, they're not finishing bottom of that division.
I think they're 3-6 at the moment, and they're still bottom. There aren't many divisions, I don't think, at the moment where there's a team with 3 wins at the bottom.
No.
So it's going to be interesting to see how they develop.
And 3 wins so far. They're going to win more games.
There's a lot of time to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Considering next up they've got Carolina with that clearly weak defense.
Ooh, yeah, that'll be a tasty one. Might have to watch that one.
So moving on, we have got. Let's go to the Redskins at the Bucks. Not a huge amount to say about that, other than Redskins won, as you'd probably have expected them to against the Bucks.
I would have thought so. Do we know who was quarterbacking for the Bucks? Because it seems to be interchangeable per game.
It's weekly at the moment, isn't it?
Because I think they announced that Fitzpatrick.
It was Ryan Fitzpatrick. He got 406 yards.
Oh, okay.
No touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
That sounds like Fitzmagic to
me. He's one of those quarterbacks who can play around the midfield, and then again, like the second it gets anywhere near somewhere where he needs to generally think about what he's going to do, and there's no three receivers, he just can't cope.
Do you think this is going to be the death of Jameis Winston in the NFL?
Oh, it's got to be now.
From the end of this season, they'll be looking at quarterback in the draft. Do you think?
Oh, surely, because if you look at the way that Winston's done stuff this season, it's not good enough in the slightest.
Oh my God, no, not even close.
Because considering didn't they go up to try and get him in the draft?
Who, Jameis Winston?
Yeah.
I think they traded. I feel like they did.
I feel like they traded him up, yeah.
Whether they finished with the worst record or whether they traded up. I don't think they traded up massively from like mid to first.
I feel like they would have been, I think it was top 6 pick or something, potentially?
Yeah, I think you're right.
And so, yeah, so what are we saying? Bucks looking for a quarterback, do you reckon?
I think they'll have to. I think Fitzpatrick is a decent option off the top bench, but I mean, that's about as much as Fitzpatrick can do these days. Yeah. You're not going to build your franchise around the man, with all due respect to him, of course. But
that's the thing, because it's been in the league long enough to know what to do and what not to do.
Well, again, I think he was the quarterback of the Jets when they came very close to the playoffs.
If you also look at back in, what was that, 2014, when Matt Sharp was at the Texans.
That's the name I forgot about.
That's the thing, because he did alright, didn't he, with them?
There's a couple of quarterbacks that no one ever has any faith in that have come just so close.
Then he went off to Oakland, didn't he?
Yes.
And just failed again and again and again.
But I think the king of this would be, and I wish I mean, we beat them last season, the Patriots beat them last season, but I really, really wish that Blake Bortles got Jacksonville to the Super Bowl.
That's the thing, because
I would have loved to have seen him in his Jags kit lifting the Super Bowl above his head.
Because obviously the Jags are the London home team, if you like.
Well, it's the London Jags really nowadays, isn't it?
So I've had the chance to see him a couple of times. I saw him in his rookie season, and I saw him a couple of years later. And I'm not going to lie, for a big pocket quarterback that you don't see many young quarterbacks like him nowadays. I think he's done alright. Considering the Jags and the way that they've been over the last 5 years.
Look, I mean, he's a limited quarterback. His decision making leaves a lot to be desired. It goes without saying. The talent is there. You can clearly see he's got ability. all it is decision making, and he's had numerous coaches, numerous coordinators, numerous teammates. He's been hurt so much by the fact that they can't settle the team around him. And this isn't saying that if they had settled the team around him, he'd instantly become like Pro Bowl level every season. I don't think he's that kind of player, but I think he can produce, and I think the fact that the likes of Leonard Fournette and Jalen Ramsey have contributed, but in so much smaller parts of this season, hasn't helped him even slightly at all.
So moving on to another game, we've talked about the Bills for a little bit, but they just demolished the Jets, didn't they, on Sunday?
To be honest, if I was going to pick one team to demolish the other, it'd be the other way round. I thought the Jets would do them.
That's the thing, because after seeing the Bills play the Bears a couple of weeks back, I was expecting not, because the Bears now have played both of these, and I wasn't expecting anything like that.
Well, I think this goes to show you the kind of quarterback that Sam Darnold can be for the Jets, because I think he was injured.
Yeah.
They had so Josh McCown in at quarterback.
It was Josh McCown, yes.
Yeah.
Who, to be fair, didn't have the best game. 17 completions of 34 attempts, 135 yards. Again, 2 interceptions with no touchdowns.
But I mean, the one part of the Bills where you feel at least semi-comfortable is the defense.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's when you give the ball to the offense, you think, oh my God, we're going to be back on the field in 30 seconds' time.
I think they are one of those teams who have never really. They're kind of the anti-Indianapolis Colts, aren't they? Where they put so much into their defense and then leave a lot to be desired with the ball.
Yeah, I think it depends how much faith people like the Bills have in Josh Allen. Really, I mean, he had one game where I think they tore up the Panthers or something like that, and no one saw it coming. Everyone thought, "Oh my God, the Bills are for real." Next game stunk it up. So unless he does a Jared Goff, where year 2 he just explodes onto the scene, but they're not going to be searching for a new quarterback. They'll give him 3-4 years. They'll do a Jameis Winston kind of run with him, see what he can do. If they can't do it, as the Bills have done numerous times this last decade, they'll move on to someone else again.
And speaking of moving on, let's go on to the Colts, who we've talked about a little bit, but not this game, where they only beat the Jags by 3, so very tight game in Jacksonville.
I think they led it for a large part of the game. They led, like, the Jacksonville couldn't score on Indy.
That's and the thing, first quarter was 14-7 Colts, second was 15-9, 15-9 Colts, and then they didn't score at all in the second half.
Oh. That's revolting. I think both teams should be a little bit ashamed of themselves there. That's not good.
Because if you look at their results, Colts are 4-5, Jags are 3-6. There's not much to talk about with these teams, I don't think. Moving on to the playoff run, there's not going to be a huge amount said about them.
Apart from the fact Andrew Luck is probably the most talented quarterback to not qualify for the playoffs yet again.
Oh, definitely.
I feel sorry for the bloke.
That's the thing, because we know he's had his injury issues. Yeah. But he's still offered so much when he has been fit. And again, he had 3 touchdowns on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly incredibly talented. He's had his horrific injury issues where he's only really got back to playing now. I think he had 2 years out or something like this. But you'd like to think that Indianapolis would build him a roster that he could win football games with, because if they're not going to do it,
if you put him in any other team or in any other competent team.
Yeah,
they're a playoff team straight away.
Oh yeah, if you I don't know, if you got rid of, to be honest, if you got rid of Stafford out of Detroit and you stuck Andrew Luck in there, I feel Andrew Luck could do a job.
Oh yeah, because I feel like Matt Stafford has been a lot of the time been carried by his receivers.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's had Megatron and he's had all of these other kind of players, and I think even with the fact that they got rid of Golden Tate, I think if you had stuck Andrew Luck in that Detroit offense, I think they'd be a bigger machine.
So again, moving on, let's talk about the Chiefs, who are still one of the strongest teams in the NFL at the moment. They've gone to 9-1 thanks to a 26-14 win over the very disappointing Arizona Cardinals this season.
Oh yeah, this is I think there's still Josh Rosen's. They announced him as the starting quarterback, and I think they're gonna. Well, I like to think they're gonna be patient with the kid. But having said that, I'd also like people to take a step back on Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. Not in a sense that he's not good, because clearly he is. But how many times have we seen a quarterback have a great, truly outstanding first year
I think
and then just tail off?
to an extent we saw with Jameis Winston, didn't we?
Yeah.
Because him and Mike Evans were just
It was
week after week.
incredible, yeah.
Yeah.
And then now we're talking about Jameis Winston not getting. I'm not saying not getting a team, but he's certainly not going to be on the Bucks next year.
And if he is, then there's no way in hell that he's going to be starting.
Oh, that's it. I mean, I think Kansas have invested in Mahomes in the long term, so he'll be their starting quarterback for the next couple of years. But I think that people need to temper their expectations.
Yeah.
Because this is going to be a young kid. Essentially, it's his rookie year because he didn't play a single snap last year. He'll be going into the playoffs with this team. He'll be playing playoff football, and he'll be trying to get into the AFC Championship game, which I think they'll get to. These kids in these situations are going to be bound to make mistakes.
Oh, yeah. Thing is, the thing that I admittedly, the Packers are not my favourite team in the world.
No.
But the way that they get quarterbacks in and let them be tutored underneath someone else, because Aaron Rodgers, I don't think would be the quarterback that he is without that season behind, who was it, Brett Favre?
Yeah, Brett Favre.
There you go.
Well, this is also my theory about the whole Jimmy Garoppolo thing, and I was in, bizarrely or not, I was in the camp where I would have more than happily moved on to Garoppolo.
Yeah.
Because I mean, yes, Brady can still win at this age. Garoppolo's going to be around for the next 10 to 15 years at least, if not longer. And similar to Rodgers, although Rodgers is a far better quarterback, Garoppolo, sits behind the man. Brady learns off of him for 3 years, and now he's starting for San Francisco. And before his knee injury, he was shredding it for them. And it shows that he's, sometimes being a bit more patient with your high drafted quarterbacks, it pays off.
That's the thing, because if you're taking a quarterback at a top level in the draft, with the possible exception of Tim Tebow, they're going to be good.
Oh yeah, Tim Tebow. Yeah.
I'm just thinking out quarterbacks from the past now.
He's played minor league baseball, isn't he?
He does. That. I think there was a point when they were trying to get him into the majors.
Oh jeez.
I don't think he's been able to make the step up yet.
No, not a chance.
I'm more than happy to be.
I so hope he hits like the winning home run in the World Series or something like that. Just cries of Tebow around the stadium.
And I can imagine how fireworks going up and
it'd be a national holiday. Tim Tebow.
This is pretty much just a podcast of bringing up players who are half decent in 2012.
Oh, that's it. Let's keep it going.
Speaking of which, Tom Brady and the Patriots.
Oh, yeah. Bad. It was a bad.
They've gone down to 7-3 now after a 34-10 loss against the Titans, with Marcus Mariota getting 2 touchdowns and 228 yards with no interceptions.
Credit to Mariota, played a very good game of football. But I'd also like to argue that the Patriots are so bad, I think me and you combined could have scored on them. It was just one of those games where Brady looked like he couldn't throw, the receivers looked like they couldn't catch, defensive players looked like they couldn't defend. Oh, man, considering the kind of head coach that Bill Belichick is, I would not want to be in that locker room after that game, dissecting that game or going back home, because they're on a bye week, so they've got a fortnight to dissolve this.
Bill Belichick is known for getting rid of players as he pleases. Do you think there could be a turnaround, especially with it?
Oh, that's it. There was this one running back a couple of years ago. I forget his name. They got him off the practice squad in Miami. Played his first game. I think it might have been against the Colts. Scores 4 rushing touchdowns. And I was like, oh, this guy's incredible. Bill Belichick cuts him a week later because he turned up to training late once, and that's it.
See, with the Titans, they got 17 points in the first quarter. Do you think that could have affected the game? Maybe if the Pats could actually defend in the first 15 minutes of the game, could that game have gone differently?
I think perhaps. I mean, obviously, I'm immediately going to sort of go towards that Super Bowl game against Atlanta, where the game ran away from them for 3 quarters, and then they realised they were the New England Patriots and they can win football games. But this is an older New England Patriots. Brady's another year older. I mean, I'm not going to dissolve this right down to the fact that Brady's another year older, but the team doesn't look as imperious as it once was.
Yeah. Do you think it could be the end of an era?
Sooner rather than later, I think.
Yeah.
I think the fact that Gronk's just can't get healthy this season, the fact that I think he's only had one season where he's been fully fit and played every game, I think this is damning. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Gronk retires at the end of the season. Just
And
purely.
how old is he now? Because he's not old. Like,
He's one of those players you presume's old. When you look at his age, you think, "Oh my God, okay, he's still got time." But the fact is, he has so many serious injuries, and even when he played this season, he just didn't look like he could run.
I think he's only 29.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's been not relied on, but he's a big tight end. Like he's gonna have hit after hit after hit.
Well, that's it. This is a man who said he's not playing football with any other quarterback apart from Tom Brady, and Tom Brady said he wants to play till 45. I'm telling you right now, he's not playing until 45.
No, because who is there? Because obviously, for the last 10, 15 years, you've had the Pats be absolutely dominant.
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to go back to a point in like late 80s, early 90s when, or not late 80s, but like around like 95, 96 when they just couldn't get anything really?
I don't think it's going to turn into situations like the Browns where things just go
no.
completely bottom out horrible. But I wouldn't be surprised if it turned into like a 8 and 9 win team kind of thing where they're going to have to refine their identity. The only reason they're able to spend on these luxury players and get people like Josh Gordon in is because Brady always took team favourable contracts.
Oh yeah.
Modern quarterbacks, the young ones these days, they're not going to think, "Oh yeah, take 10 million off of my contract so we can get me a wide receiver." They're not going to think that.
That's the thing. Tom Brady, if you think about his regular income, he's going to have sponsorship deal after sponsorship deal.
Yeah.
He's going to make more than enough as it is.
Yeah.
Because he's Tom Brady.
He must recognise he's getting hit more than he ever has been. He's getting pressured more than he ever had been. Just this season alone, he's got to be thinking, do you know what? If I take a nasty hit, like Tony Romo's career was ended in pre-season because a guy flopped on him whilst he was on the floor and he just bent down and done his back. You know, that happens to Brady. He's got to think, well, look, I'm like 41 years old. I'm so much older than Tony Romo.
The thing is, though, have you seen or have you watched a game where Tony Romo's been in the commentary team? Because I love watching.
He's one of my favourite commentators, easily, hands down.
He reads the game as a quarterback would, and as he should. But there aren't many people who would go out their way to put it out into that extent and really say, "All right, this is going to be a pass play to the left," or something like that.
Well, this is the benefit of having ex-players, not just ex-players, but ex-players recently.
Oh yeah, because
in the booth talking about the game.
The game's changed a lot since the 80s.
Yeah,
so it's tough to get that sort of analysis from 50, 60-year-old men.
You're getting people that played in the 80s and the 70s and stuff, and they're talking about the game today, and you think, well, half the stuff you're talking about wouldn't be legal in the game today because of the new rule changes. I mean,
completely different.
Yeah, I mean, it's but for Brady, I don't know what his contract's like now because it gets chopped and changed on a regular basis. Every 6 months it seems to get a restructure.
Yeah.
But, you know, if I'm the Kraft and I'm Belichick, I'm sitting there, I'm looking at the team going forward. I know it's people are going to call it a humongous overreaction, but I'm looking at his contract length and I'm thinking, man's 41 years old. If you don't think he's 100% going to play for 5 more years, don't invest in him playing for 5 more years. At some point, you've got to think, we need to. You've always got to get rid of these people a year too early rather than a year too late.
Oh yeah.
Because if you get them for a year too early,
it's a season gone.
That's it, and then you can get a quarterback in cheap. Do like what they're doing at the Rams, and just because you've got them on a rookie deal, spend all your money on weapons, and then yes, you won't be able to sustain that for a long term because the quarterback's going to want his pay. But they've got to be looking at these situations where these young quarterbacks are coming through. Maybe not this year, because I know there's been some talk in America about how this isn't a very strong quarterback draft, but it's got to be this year, next year.
Things if there's going to be teams, because like you said, it's not a strong quarterback class this year, but there's got to be at least one. I've not watched college football in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
But there's got to be someone there who can, even if it is stepping behind someone, watch for a season. Just watching behind Tom Brady. You spoke about it with Garoppolo.
Yeah.
There's got to be someone there.
There's got to be someone. They've got Danny Etling at the moment, so no one really knows about him because he's just going to redshirt this year, barring injury. He scored a rushing touchdown against the Giants in pre-season, which was incredible. 70-yard rushing touchdown, which was good. It's weird watching a New England Patriots quarterback running the ball without looking like he's got 3 left feet. But Because if Tom Brady leaves and they don't sort their quarterback situation out, we've got a quarterback combo of Brian Hoyer and Danny Etling.
Oh,
So
the team of dreams right there.
I mean, who do you pick as your starter?
So moving on from one aging quarterback in Tom Brady to another one who seems to have found his prime again, Drew Brees, and the Saints putting up 51 points against the Bengals.
For me, Drew Brees is my MVP so far this year.
Really?
For me, yeah, above Mahomes.
Because they're 8-1 now.
Yeah.
They beat the Rams.
Yes.
Which in itself, because
I called that last week.
we weren't in last week.
The week before,
yeah,
excuse me.
But we weren't in last week, and this was one of the games that I think we would have spoken about a lot.
Yes.
Because it's the two biggest teams in the NFC going head to head, and
well, it's going to be a supposed NFC Championship game, isn't it? Really?
Do you think it's still going to be?
What, the Rams and the Saints?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. I think so. I think it's pretty much. You've got other teams in there, of course, but no team's got so much depth and strength as the Saints and the Rams, barring a weird injury crisis. But
that's the thing, because even then, if Drew Brees goes out, I know it's not to the same extent, but they've got Teddy Bridgewater, who's started.
I mean,
like you don't normally get a backup quarterback with that level of experience.
Bridgewater's the man who's getting into the Pro Bowl with the Vikings before he got a horrific injury. The only knock I'd have against the Saints, the only knock, is that Armstead is injured. Teron Armstead.
Yeah.
He's out for 3 to 4 weeks. But you'd like to think that with the depth that they have, and with just the outstanding season that Drew Brees is having, they'd be able to work around it. I personally, I would love to see the Saints in the Super Bowl above the Rams. I'd love to see it.
One final big Drew
Brees. Because this is it. I think Drew Brees is looking for that last hurrah. He's passed all the records this season that have been publicised. I think he wants one more final big push at getting back to the Super Bowl. And then I'm not saying he's going to retire at the end of the year, but I think that's going to be his.
This is pretty much his final big season.
Oh yeah. I think if the Saints have a big season this year and don't win the Super Bowl, I don't think they're going to be able to repeat what they're doing this season and last season and next season.
So we've already spent half an hour talking about these games, so I'll try and get through some of these fairly quickly. Cowboys and the Eagles. Cowboys won in the NFC South.
We say some very uncomplimentary things about the Eagles with Stuart not here. Well, he's not here. He can't tell us not to do it.
Let's give it a go.
Let's go. Yeah.
What do you think about Carson Wentz?
Cut him. No.
Awful player. Awful.
He's the quarterback I was mentioning about with Patrick Mahomes, and the player that has an outstanding first year, albeit Wentz had the injury. Standing first year, dipped the second.
Yeah.
This is why I preach patience. But with the Eagles, one of those teams that try to do a Rams thing and just spend big, whilst they've got Wentz under this contract, it's not working as they had planned.
The thing is, both the Eagles and the Cowboys are 4-5, so surely it's going to be the Redskins going through.
Alex Smith is going to win the.
That's the thing. We've been talking about weak divisions today, and it's another one there.
It's one of those you can't decide who's the worst team in the division, rather than who's the best.
So moving on, in the California, soon to not be California derby, we've got the Chargers and the Raiders. Chargers winning 20-6.
Raiders might as well just forfeit the rest of their games.
They've
lost Martavis Bryant to injury now, so what else is there? Jordy Nelson.
Do you think?
I think Jordy Nelson's injured as well, so who's next?
Do you think they'll tank now and just go,
For me,
end the season now, lost.
For me, I think the last podcast we did, a fortnight ago, I think I said that the Raiders were going to get a top 3 pick. I think they're getting number 1.
Really?
Honestly,
even above. Oh, things the Giants won, didn't they?
Cleveland won as well.
Yeah.
I think the Raiders are getting that number 1 overall pick, and I think they'll get I don't know if they'll get a quarterback or not, because there's a little bit of whether John Gruden wants to completely rebuild or rebuild around Derek Carr.
So, moving on, trying to get a few more of the games in. Talks about the Browns win there. They put 28 up against the Falcons.
I'm happy for them, really am.
That's the thing, because they've again.
No franchise's support base deserves a couple of wins more than the Browns.
Oh yeah, thing is, I'm not sure if I think they're good because they were so bad last year,
Yes.
or whether it's a step up into
I don't
the right
think
direction.
I don't think they're good. I just think they're better.
Yeah. So, Packers put in 31 up against the Dolphins for a win on Sunday. I think that was one of the evening games, wasn't it?
Yeah, I watched that game. Yeah, Brock Osweiler.
Nothing else to say, is there?
Yeah,
just Brock Osweiler.
When it's Aaron Rodgers versus Brock Osweiler, who do you think's going to win that game?
Yeah. Then we've got the Rams beating the Seahawks again, so they remain one of the premier teams in the NFL.
Yep. I said it before. I feel sorry for Russell Wilson because he's carrying that Seahawks team on his shoulders at times.
He had a good game, 3 touchdowns off 17 passes.
Yeah.
And the first touchdown that the Seahawks got to Nick Verrett was fantastic from Wilson.
Yeah.
But the pocket just keeps crumbling around him.
As I said before, he just may as well not have an offensive line because that's about as porous as it is.
Yeah.
You may as well pick 5 kids from a charity to stand in front of him and they'd have a better chance.
Okay. So,
I mean,
wow.
get the Make-A-Wish Foundation on board, see if they've got any offensive line units on board.
Speaking of which, what could the Giants do with at the moment? Admittedly, they won against the 49ers, but neither team's doing well this season.
Have the Giants played the Raiders yet this season? Because that's a classic I want to watch.
That's going to be the sort of game where the NFL put it in as a Sunday night game.
That will be the decider who gets the number 1 pick. I still think the Raiders will lose just somehow. But, I mean, the Giants need some. I mean, considering how talented the Giants roster is,
That's the thing.
they shouldn't be that bad.
They've got some... I mean, Eli Manning is not exactly... he's past it, but he's not bad.
Well, they've got
to the same extent.
Saquon Barkley, Odell Beckham Jr., got Sterling Shepard, and I know I'm missing a couple more out there. Got Nate Solder on the offensive line, although he's struggled a little bit to get used to the Giants system. They've got the players, and they've got Olivier Vernon in defence and a number of other defensive players which they spent big money on, and they're still this bad. There's one player who hasn't been changed throughout the whole of that, and that's Mr. Manning.
Yeah. Do you reckon it's beginning of the end for him as well?
Oh, I think it was before Kyle Lauletta got arrested for running over a police officer.
Yeah.
Because I think that was the quarterback that the Patriots were sniffing after originally in the draft.
Because I can imagine in New York there must have been a fair bit of talk about Eli not being up to the level that he should be at.
Yeah, I think whether this would be his last season or not, I don't know. I see them picking very high in the draft. I see them picking that quarterback from Alabama that everyone's in love with, whose name, by the way, I just will not pronounce because I can't. Just it's one of the they'll have to pick a quarterback this year.
Yeah.
They didn't pick one this past draft even. Excuse me. They just simply have to. This is just to appease their fans, if anything.
So moving on, that is the last week done. If you want to talk about this week coming up now, if there's any games that really stand out to you at the moment.
I'm just having a detox after that New England game where I'll watch a football game for sure, but I'm still going to be haunted by memories of like watching the highlights of that game afterwards. It was crumbling.
So
Who we got?
If we go into next week, for a Thursday night game, so Friday morning here is Seahawks Packers.
Oh,
I think again because they've got a history in the last 5 years, but
that's a good one, isn't it?
that's what I'm thinking because we've talked about the Seahawks now. They haven't got the team that they did.
No,
but the Packers haven't either.
Neither. They're very in similar situation. You could take the quarterback, swap them over, and they'd be in the exact same situation, really, wouldn't they? I mean, you'd like to think that Rodgers and the Packers would win that, wouldn't you? But you can never count out Russell Wilson because he's probably one of the most elusive quarterbacks in terms of.
I think it's very, very underrated personally.
Yes.
Considering it's for a small man, he's not got a bad arm.
Oh my god, he's a strong arm.
Yeah.
Such a strong arm. I think the fact that he's done well in the league has enabled all these other smaller sized quarterbacks a chance at playing.
It was what 2012, wasn't it? Him and Colin Kaepernick came into the league. God bless Colin Kaepernick. Another quarterback that we've not been able to speak about much recently, who's somehow stumbled his way into this week's podcast.
Yeah, well, there you go.
So, But yeah, it's basically been those two who've paved the way, haven't they? And now
Yeah.
we've got what?
I don't think he likes Johnny Mansell, although I know he's in Canada now, or Baker Mayfield or any of these kind of quarterbacks. I don't think any of them would have stood a chance in the NFL had Russell Wilson and Drew Brees not paved that way for as small a size quarterbacks. Everyone would still be in the...
Even RG3.
Oh yeah, even yeah.
He was big, but he ran.
These are people that are just not stereotypical big bulky quarterbacks.
Because if you think about it, what was it, like 2007, 8? Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady were running the league basically.
Yeah.
And it's good to see a refreshing change to that extent.
It was needed for the NFL. It was needed. Otherwise, it would just be one of those products where you know who's going to win, who's get to the final. You're just watching the process, and that gets so boring so quickly.
Yeah. So other games, there's not really much to say about the Colts and the Titans, is there? Let's face it.
No, less of the Titans the better.
Giants Bucks in what is surely one of the highlights this week.
Oh, it's another it's another situation of who's going to be the worst. They're both going to be bad, but who's going to? I'd think Giants. They've got better options.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if we'll go through predictions this week, considering there's only two.
No, I'm just saying. I
But
mean,
yeah.
out of the two, the least. I can't believe I'm saying the Giants are the least bad out of the two teams. But I mean, I just think they probably are that day.
That's the thing, is we were talking about their roster. They've got the players there. They just can't get it together. And the Bucks just haven't got the roster in the first place, basically.
Bucks are just born self-destructive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of being born self-destructive,
Go on then.
the Browns aren't playing next week. Never mind. So that's
heartbreaking.
That's ruined my fantastically smooth work through. So
There you go.
let's just go on to the Jags versus the Steelers instead, where it's just two teams who are just very meh.
Although one of my favourite games last season
Really?
was the Jags versus the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs. It was just I was rooting for the Jags so hard.
I think
So hard.
that's the thing, because I haven't really got the fan base in the US to the extent that most teams do. But in the UK, I wouldn't say they're everyone's second team, but there's a soft spot for them.
I think that it's far more plausible that the Jags move to London than London gets a franchise.
Yeah.
Because I think the NFL is perfect. If every conference in the NFL there's 4 teams, and then you just add London in there, so which conference gets the 5th? It's a little bit uneven. I think it's far more likely that the Jags just move. And I know that there's so many different hurdles to overcome before that happens. But
because it's such a logistics issue, isn't it?
I mean, but in terms of ticket sales, you'd sell out. I think it'd be at Tottenham now because they've adapted their stadium for the NFL. But you'd sell that stadium at every game for
easily.
the Jags if they're playing.
Considering Wembley has 89,000 capacity for
Yeah.
NFL games,
That's it.
and they just keep smashing that attendance record.
That doesn't matter which team plays. You could pick
You could put the Browns against the Bucks there, and it would still not necessarily sell out, but you'd get at least 80,000 people.
Oh
at that
yeah, yeah. Apparently, yeah. just drinking at the bar, recovering afterwards.
Tell you what though, the concession sales at Wembley for that would be incredible.
Yes, absolutely.
So moving on, Panthers coming off a big loss are hosting the Lions.
Yeah.
Again, there's a few teams, or there's a few games this week where it's just a bit. You're not really sure. They're just very average sides going up against each other.
Yeah.
I
mean, I imagine again, I know we're not doing predictions, but I imagine the Panthers will beat the Lions.
Yeah.
But they're both teams, you don't really see them getting to a championship game or anything like that.
So if you go through some of the other ones just very, very quickly, Falcons, Cowboys, again, one of those where no one's really going to get anywhere.
No.
Redskins top of that division with the Cowboys against the Texans.
Could be interesting.
Yes.
Maybe.
Looking at the fixtures here, you've also got the Cardinals against the Raiders, which, let's face it, no one is going to want to watch. Considering at the same time you've got the Saints against the Eagles.
Which one? Oh man. Yeah, I can see. Yeah, no one's going to be watching that game.
No,
let's be honest.
Chargers Broncos, again, it's just a bit meh.
It's a bit of just a divisional matchup,
yeah,
really.
There's not
isn't
really
it?
much there. Divisional matchups staying with us though, with Bears against the Vikings, which
that could be interesting. I could see why that could be interesting.
that's Sunday night football, and it's I'd like to say that the Bears are gonna just go in, take the win, go back to Chicago, but
Well, it depends which Kirk Cousins shows up, really,
yeah,
doesn't it?
that's the thing. Cause,
There's two different people.
yeah.
I'm convinced.
And then moving on very quickly, we've got probably the game of the week on Monday Night Football, where we've got the Rams and the Chiefs going head to head.
Oh, we're talking about potential like championship games. This could be a potential
Yeah.
like Super Bowl game, couldn't it? Really, that's going to be a cracking game. Absolutely.
That's the,
Having said that, it'll be like 9-9 final score. Or something
it's going to
like
be
that.
field goal after field goal after field goal, isn't it?
Yeah.
I feel like there's like if any podcast of ours at the moment, it's going to be saying that that's the game to be looking out for.
You've got to say so. You'd have to say that's the marquee matchup, isn't it? Really.
So moving on, we've actually done quite well considering there's only two of us here.
Of course.
We've been able to get through 41 minutes so far. So any other business, and I feel like we've talked about him very briefly already. I seem to not be able to say his name today. Le'Veon Bell.
Le'Veon Bell. Wow. I mean, he must have like the greatest amount of self-confidence any human being has ever had in his own
Yeah.
ability. Because he's, what is it, $14 million he's given up now,
'Cause
something like that?
I looked earlier on, and he was basically giving up over $500,000 a game. Considering his backup, he's getting just over $500,000 for the season.
Yeah. I think he wanted to prove how valuable he was, but what he's actually done is prove how valuable James Conner is.
Yeah.
And now there is zero chance that Pittsburgh are going to give Bell any money whatsoever. Bill will not play for the Steelers next season.
That's the thing, because they've franchise tagged him for the last, 3 seasons now.
Yes.
And if you don't know, then the franchise tag money goes up every time a player's franchise tags.
Yeah.
So then basically they're not going to be able to afford him next year, as well as have a competent team.
Pittsburgh have got to be 100% certain, though, that James Conner's their man going forward. It's not just a one-season wonder. But I think, regardless of what happens there, Bill's burnt those bridges. Bill will be wearing a different uniform next season. There's just no question about it.
Potentially can you see him going? I know it's still, we're only halfway through the season, but any suggestions?
I think the Jets are an option, purely because one thing that Sam Darnold doesn't have there, and Sam Darnold will be the Jets quarterback franchise-wise. Sam Darnold doesn't have any options. I think he's got Quincy Enunwa is his go-to man, and Jermaine Kearse, the old Seahawks receiver. So he could use an elite running back. The problem was for the Giants was the running back, but Saquon Barkley looks to be their go-to guy now. So now that's sort of dissipated a little bit. There's a couple of other. I mean, whichever team Bill goes to, he's not going to go to one of the perennial favourites. Because the fact that these teams are perennial favourites is because they've got all the pieces.
Yeah.
Usually, you'd say, well, New England always picks up a player like this every now and again. New England will not pay Bell that kind of money,
because he's going to want enough that he's going to be.
Well, the whole deal was that he wanted wide receiver money, not just running back money.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, because you're looking at why he's not playing. It's mainly because I was reading something this morning, and it's basically that he doesn't want to be so reliant, or he doesn't want his team to be so reliant upon him that it's going to get injured and get battered every game.
Yeah.
And how can you have a running back on that sort of money where you're not going to be using him for the majority of plays?
If you're going to pay something like $100 million or whatever it is that he's demanding, you're going to want him to play at least 99.9% of the snaps.
Oh, yeah.
And if he gets injured, well, that's just part and parcel of American football, I'm afraid. People get injured.
If you're a top player, you expect to be used a lot.
Yeah. What kind of player goes out and says, I want you to pay me the most money you've paid any other running back, but don't play me much, please?
Yeah.
You're instantly going to get told, no, get out, there's the door.
It's just going to go from team to team. If he keeps up that mentality, I can't see any team really going, oh yeah, we're going to bring you in and not play you as much as we want to. He'll go to someone like
the Jets for 2 years until they have to pay Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
Then he'll end up getting shipped out to the Bucks. We'll go until they have to pay their new rookie quarterback the money. Then he'll go somewhere else and somewhere else. Like DeMarco Murray, who was a long time at the Cowboys. And they wanted to pay, was it Des Bryant instead of DeMarco Murray, and then DeMarco Murray just bounced everywhere else.
That's the thing, because it's where is he?
He retired now.
Right.
Went to the Eagles for a year, worked under Chip Kelly. Then he went to, I want to say, the Titans for a year.
I believe so, yeah.
And then Derrick Henry really sort of blew up out of nowhere, and then he realised that wherever I go, I'm going to be second and third fiddle.
It's going to reach a point, or it reached a point for him. It may well reach a point for Bell where there's just no place in the league for him.
Yeah, I think that's the case.
And it's a sorry state for a player who's as talented as he is.
Yeah.
But he needs to accept that that's what happens in the NFL. If you don't get paid, or if you don't get played, start that again. If you don't get played, then you're not going to get paid.
No, of course. I'm not going to go... Like, if you got Premier League footballer, for example, who's getting paid, like, let's say £300,000 a week kind of thing, and then he says, well, I'm only available to play August. You think, well, why am I paying you £300,000 a week? Why would I ever want to pay you that much money?
It's ridiculous to think about.
I get that these players are looking for their own protection in case they get injured, but there's got to be some kind of balancing act as well. They've got to have the realisation that, well, I've got to earn the money. I can't just say, I'm a good running back. In the past, I've done this. Pay me now. You've got to say, well, I'm going to be able to do this for you going forward.
That's the thing, because now he's not played for a while, and he's not going to play now until training camp, no matter where he ends up.
Yep.
So how is he going to be able to keep that fitness up? That's another thing that he's
It's
going to have to think about.
Only if he's had some. I've got just out of my own sincerity, I've got to hope he's been training with someone, like a personal trainer or something. Because if he's literally been sat on his couch doing nothing this whole season, he's going to be rusty when he comes back, and he's going to look terrible, and he's going to be that kind of player that gets focused on him. That's it. It'll be the New York Jets in Hard Knocks, and Le'Veon Bell will go to the Jets, and that will be all they focus on, and that'll be it.
So, that was the big point of interest this week. Is there anything else that you want to talk about, potentially?
I mean, there's the Bills, who, having brought in Terrell Pryor to be their next wide receiving target, and then released him 2 weeks later. But
the quarterback turned receiver.
The quarterback who decided he was a really good wide receiver, became wide receiver. And guess what? It turned out he wasn't a really good wide receiver.
That's the sort of thing that you see. No way, surely not. That's the sort of thing that you see in high school football, or maybe college, and it's like, oh yeah, bro, I'll give this position a go.
It's really.
Do you think?
I don't blame him for wanting to try, and I don't blame him for having confidence in the ability.
Oh yeah.
But it gets a little bit embarrassing when you go to a place for a week or two, and they're like, actually, you're not really that good. Can you leave, please? I think he's not exactly. He was never one of those quarterbacks who's really going to set the league alight, is he? Do you think he was looking for a higher paycheck, and the only way that he could do that was from another position? Yeah, probably. I think he realised that he wasn't going to get a gig at quarterback. He was looking for, well, I'm not finished with the league. What other positions can I play? And when you've got that, then you wonder how really passionate is he about the NFL. If he's just looking for where he can get paid, basically. Yeah. And I'm so glad, because the Patriots were sniffing around him a little bit when he came a free agent, not this past off season, but the last. So I'm glad that never happened. Very glad.
Anything else? I'm just looking through the NFL website here, trying to find if there's anything else that we can.
Well, it's really the fact that Amari Cooper seems to have settled a little bit in Dallas.
Yeah.
He looks a little.
It's a more stable place to be than Oakland at the moment.
Look at the Chicago effect with Khalil Mack.
Yes.
Khalil Mack. The Oakland's theory was that we can do well without him. Defense was always our problem with Khalil Mack. Let's take Khalil Mack out. Could it be any worse? It's been very bad, and I'd argue that it is worse. Then he's gone to Chicago. Chicago's defense, which was already good, is far better. So they look at the Amari Cooper thing. It's like, well, our production levels aren't really good, and we've got Amari Cooper. Let's get rid of Amari Cooper. Let's get a first in. They'll send Amari Cooper to Dallas. They'll send Amari Cooper to Dallas. Offensively, they get worse.
Yeah.
Offensively for Dallas, they get better. You're thinking, guys.
Amari Cooper's. In this studio, we've not exactly given him much praise, have we?
No.
That's
I mean,
mainly for his hands, isn't it?
For me, he's far too inconsistent to be a proper number one wide receiver.
But as an option, I'm not saying it will be, target every play, but there's maybe second or third. He's a good play to have there.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's an option. He's the kind of option that you want in your team. But I mean, as I said, with Jordy Nelson injured, Martavis Bryant injured, does anyone want to tell me, wide receiver wise, offensively, what the Oakland Raiders do?
There's nothing there.
If I give them a call, do you reckon I could get a gig? Because I feel confident now. It's getting to a point. I honestly don't know the names of other ones.
That's the thing. Is I'm if you know me, I'm fairly thin.
Yeah.
I could probably get in as slot receiver somewhere.
I mean, it's in basketball, in the NBA. I know tanking is common because a lot of these teams openly say, "Look, forget this season. We'll come back next." For me, this has to be tanking. This can't just be we can't get our stuff to work, we can't get our plays to work, we can't get our ideas to gel in with this team's. It's clearly I think they've got like 4 first-round picks now. Something absolutely incredibly insane like that.
That's the thing. It's going to take a year or so, but this season there's nothing for the fans to cheer for. There's got to be something down the line.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they've got nothing for the next 3 years
at least. Yeah, I mean, obviously they're moving to Vegas, and I feel sorry for the city of Oakland because it's if you want to lose a team, if you have to lose a team, you want to lose a team that are doing well.
Yeah,
it feels really poisonous now. The way I
feel sorry for the Raiders because the Chargers basically just nabbed their spot in LA.
It was the Raiders, wasn't it, in LA? Yeah. And then the Chargers excuse me.
Yeah.
And then just stole in. This worked. Well, I mean, it's not worked well for the Chargers
because then they're still playing. They're doing MLS, well. The thing is, they're playing in a MLS stadium, which is 28,000 capacity.
Yeah, I can't imagine what kind of weird atmosphere you get for a game.
I've not watched the Chargers game since they moved, so I'm
they're
not
like,
sure.
What, 6-2 or something? So they're having a decent season, but they're going to have to move stadiums again.
Yeah.
It just seems.
What they had in San Diego wasn't fantastic.
No, it wasn't. The setup wasn't great, and you can clearly tell that was feeding back to the team because the team wasn't playing great either. And it was clearly time in San Diego that there needs to be
some sort of change. Yeah.
And I think a little bit in St. Louis as well. I think St. Louis and the Rams organisation.
Yeah.
There was clearly some kind of golf in where they wanted to be and what they wanted to do.
See, the thing that I didn't get about the Chargers is that with Rams, they've got a history in LA. They've got a fairly good history in LA as well.
Humongous history in LA.
As have the Raiders.
Yes.
And then the Chargers just went, you know what? We'll have some of that as well.
Considering the size of the country that is America, and they're squabbling about who gets to go to the same city with each other.
Yeah.
And you've got places like San Antonio and all of the. You look at all these other cities that have got humongous basketball franchises, and you think that's not even that's all the only sport that these cities and towns have on offer. I mean, there are so many huge areas that would be gagging for an NFL franchise, you'd think, or at least another franchise option or a sporting option.
Even I know it's been a point of contention about moving to the UK, but Toronto.
Well, this is it. I mean, the other option, I know I mentioned before that it would be uneven to just add one random team in there and make every other division 4 apart from one which had 5. But then you could explore the MLS option where they've got Toronto and Vancouver and all these.
And I think there's a third one as well.
Montreal.
Then you've got in the NBA, you've got the
Toronto Raptors. Yeah.
You've got, and it's just even look at the National Hockey League. Half of them are Canadian.
Yeah. I mean, you could talk about some kind of. You could either talk about expansion, or you could talk about the CFL as a feeder league kind of thing.
In the same way.
And how many times you see these college kids come up into the NFL look like a deer stuck in the headlights?
Yeah.
Look like they're not ready for the big time. Well, don't send them to the big times. Partner up with a CFL team, send them up there, let them play a year or two, and then bring them back and see if they can play football.
I think it's not the same extent as the as NFL Europe, but you could still have that same sort of relationship and be able to send players from one to the other.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think there's potential there. Well, whether the NFL actually does, they put up so much of a fight against this concussion protocol stuff before they really went with it, that I dread to think how much of an effort it would take for them to agree to anything else. But there's so much potential there. It's not really getting executed to the fullest of its ability, but
no, it's one of those things which I think needs to be looked at.
Oh, it has to be, because you're losing so many. There's so many kids in America that play football. American football, that it seems wasteful that we're only going to pick 10% of them to play in the league.
That's the thing, because you look at some of the plays that are being made at the college level. I know the defenses aren't as good, and all that, but there's raw talent there.
There's clearly raw talent, and it's like the NFL's trying to collect water by catching it in their hands.
And some of the best coaches are at the likes of Alabama, and that sort of thing. Like you saw it with Tim, what was it? One of the Harbaughs going off to Michigan.
Jim Harbaugh in Michigan. Yeah. I mean,
things like there's not at the coaching level. There's not much going from the top teams.
Well, they say
in the NCAA into the NFL.
Well, they say a lot of coaches tend to favour head coaching gigs in college rather than head coaching gigs in the NFL because it's a longer career.
And there's a lot less pressure as well.
And a lot more money.
Oh, yeah. Especially considering the players aren't getting paid, but we won't go into that now.
Yeah, no.
No, we'll stay well away from that subject for now, and especially since we're just getting up to the hour mark.
Yep, absolutely.
So I think this is probably the best time to finish up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have been Jason Button. Follow me on @JasonB_journal on Twitter. I've been with...
I am Edward Painter. I've been told I'm Edward Painter at least. I am @EO Painter on Twitter, so feel free.
So thank you for listening. Hopefully this has been just as good, if not better, than with the main Stewards here.
I think Stuart's fired, to be honest.
He wishes.
He wishes.
So thank you very much, and hopefully we'll see you as a full threesome or foursome next week.
Yep. See you later.
See you later.